of January in the year 2021. Thank you so much for joining us for this very special edition of the assignment program. I'm your host. My name is Andrew Mwans. And now with about exactly 11 days to go before the general elections in Uganda, long-serving Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni is facing an unlikely challenger, pop star turned vocal politician Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu. Bobby was born 12 February 1982. He also leads the People Power movement in opposition to President Yoweri Museveni. In June 2019, he announced his candidacy for the 2021 Ugandan presidential election. He currently serves as Member of Parliament for Kyadongo County East constituency in Wakiso district in Uganda's Central region since 2017. However, many refer to him as a ghetto president, having grown up in the slums of Kyamuka in the northeastern part of Kampala, the capital city of Uganda. On tonight's edition of the program, we feature Herman Ainebyona, Diaspora Chairman for NUP. Mr. Herman, good evening and welcome to tonight's edition of The Assignment. Good evening.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good evening. How are you this evening?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I hope you could hear me clearly.
I can hear you very clearly. Thank you.
All right, let's begin off. I do know for a fact that we're about 11 days to go before the general elections in your country. How would you describe the atmosphere ahead of the elections on the 14th of January?
I think it is twofold. I think Ugandans are ready. They're very ready to be part of these elections. They are prepared. It's one of the most, it's going to be one of the most attended elections since Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, who is my president and an aspirant in this race, joined. 2 million voters added themselves on the voters list. And so I think Ugandans are very optimistic and hopeful. On the other fold, there has been a lot of violence meted by the incumbent. So it is also, there's a lot of brutality and violence that is meted upon Ugandans by the incumbent. So it is twofold. It's both very optimistic and a little scary at the same time.
Yeah, well, what would you state as reason why there's been a lot of political violence ahead of the elections? What could be the main reason why?
It is greed. It is greed by the incumbent. It is a hunger for power, a hunger for maintaining leadership. Yoweri Museveni, who is our opponent in this election and who is the incumbent, has been president of Uganda for 35 years. Uganda has earned independence for 58 years now. And if you do the math, 35 years is more than half the time that that Uganda has been independent. So the violence is because it's to scare away opposition politicians and Ugandans who disagree with Museveni, who are critical of the government, like myself and Honorable Kyagulanyi and all these other leaders. And that's why there's a lot of violence right now.
Right. Speaking about the political playing field ahead of the elections in the next 11 days, how would you describe the political playing field? You know, is it leveled? What are some of the challenges you're experiencing ahead of the elections?
Oh man, I'll tell you of the most recent incident about 3 days ago. There's constant arrests. 3 days ago, the campaign team of Honorable Kyagulanyi was arrested. 95 people from his team. Now he moves with a big team, and 95 of those people were arrested. Some were taken into military detention. Now these are ordinary citizens, but they were arrested and taken into military detention. That's one of the challenges, the constant intimidation, the discomfort that is being meted on us. And also, limited resources, working with very limited resources. But there's also an upside to it. Our movement is very people-centered. People have welcomed this idea of change. People have welcomed Honorable Chagulani, and we have a good presence in the country. We are very, very optimistic.
Well, there's news from Uganda that your party is disregarding the COVID-19 protocols. You are campaigning in heavy numbers, yet the Electoral Commission of Uganda did announce that most of the campaigns will be done virtually, and they'll only be limited to about 200 people. Why the rush to organize as many people when you know that you're putting them in great danger?
Yeah, well, if you had me correct, my brother, our movement has been welcomed, it has been loved, and so no one organizes, thousands of people to follow Robert Chagulani Sentamu. People are just attracted to the idea of change, to the concept of a better Uganda. Our campaign theme is a new Uganda, and that has attracted people because they are tired of 35 years of leadership. So first of all, to clarify, it is, as long as they know that he's campaigning in an area, people show up to show support and, wave to their president. But the bias, and I call this impunity, and this is why we are fighting against this government, it is all resisting and opposing the governance, the current government. You don't fight COVID-19 by shooting people. I am in the US right now, and we have had, when they killed George Floyd, people still came together. People still came on the streets and they showed discomfort. But while maintaining COVID SOPs, standard operating procedures, or call them precautions. People gathering together is not necessarily the cure for COVID. It's not necessarily the only way to cure COVID. People need masks. That's what they should teach people. Masks, social distancing, availing testing for COVID, and not necessarily restricting people. It's been very restrictive. And I think, the current government, the current president who appoints Electoral Commission, by the way, who appoints the chairman of the Electoral Commission. So you see the conflict of interest right there. But the current president has taken advantage of COVID, starting from resources and even the laws. I mean, people are being battered. There was a quarantine where people were not allowed to leave after 7 p.m. Now you wonder, does COVID spread after 7? I mean, is there a timeline? So there are all these illogical but laws that in the end enabled the tyrant Yoweri Kaguta Museveni to keep his foot on Uganda's neck. So simply, we are very respectful, of coronavirus. We are really aware of the disease. And actually, Honorable Robert Chagulani has a song about coronavirus. He was one of the first people to release that song. It's on YouTube. If you go Bobby Wine and search for coronavirus, it was a song educating people about the symptoms, about the precautions.
Well, Mr. Herman, I asked like that because, on the many occasions that your campaigns have been disrupted, the police have been given an indication that you are disregarding COVID-19 protocols. That is the reason why we are disrupting your campaigns. And my question was very precise and very simple. To some extent, some people of Uganda feel that the blood of the many people that have died, out of the campaigns that they attended, for Bobby Wine, the blood is on the hands of Bobby Wine because he has failed to instruct the people not to attend rallies in masses. Don't you think to some extent you carry the blame for the loss of the many people in Uganda?
Well, my question back to that would be, That's an interesting analogy. I mean, you forgot to mention that you say blood and COVID is a disease. It doesn't shoot, right? So my question back is, did they die of COVID, or are they dying of gunshots? and the answer, it's a rhetorical question, but to answer that directly, when people say the blood of Ugandans is on Bobi Wine's hands, it's because there is a rally and police shows up and they shoot at Ugandans. They drive over Ugandans. They run over cars, crash into Ugandans. I hope you have some footage. It's everywhere on Facebook. The cars crash over Ugandans and military and police arrest, beating, tear gas, gunshots. And that is not COVID killing people. And that is not Bobi Wine. Bobi Wine, our movement is purely democratic. No knife, no pen, no gun. Our movement is about educating people, and Bobi Wine calls it edutainment. When I say Bobi Wine, I mean Honorable Chakulani Sentamu. His stage name is Bobi Wine. So, it perturbs my head, and some of these many of these are NRM. When I say NRM, I mean Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Most of them are NRM propagandists who try to flip blame onto an innocent Ugandan who just simply wants a better country. So I think that is a misled opinion, and I want to make people aware that there has been a team. NRM put up a team. They are called NRM Nsoma, of people to blog on behalf of NRM so that they can set out this kind of precedent that Bobi Wine is somehow killing people by arranging rallies and the like, which is really unfortunate, and which is definitely a lie. It doesn't make any sense for me, if anyone believes that, because it's quite obvious. People are dying of gunshots and not COVID. That's the fact.
Well, fair enough answer. Let's get to another critical issue that most people in Uganda feel. Well, you've been proponents of change as NUP. You cry for change, you shout change, you sing about change, but many feel you don't have a proper agenda for the people of Uganda. You've not explained what you would do when you form government that is on the 14th of this month.
Wow, that is unfortunate. I mean, we launched a manifesto. It is an unfortunate, kind of direction, because we have a manifesto. We launched a manifesto in Barara, about a month or 2 or 3 ago. And we have a pillar of 5. I'll tell you, so that you don't say people of Uganda, I'll tell the people who are watching and yourself that we have a pillar of 5 things, 5 key things that we are putting at the forefront of our movement, and which are our core which is our agenda, like you put it. And we call these promises. The first promise is a people-centered government. Ugandan government right now is centered on one person, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, and anything that is done to keep him in power is good for the country. Well, by the government, they treat it as good for the country. I'll give you an example. When Bobi Wine was arrested in Kalangala 2 days ago, when his campaign team was arrested, he was one of the people on the campaign because it was his campaign. There was a chopper flown into Kalangala, a military chopper flown into Kalangala to pick Bobi Wine up and put him back and take him back to his home and separate him from his team. Now, the resources to purchase a chopper to take a political opponent, and the only reason that happened is because of politics. Bobi Wine has been a musician. He has been in our lives for almost all my life, for over 25 years. He's been on the screens. But this time, he has critical attention from the government. They are able to avail resources, and about a battalion of 150 army men to transport him back to his home. Now, all those resources wasted on a political opponent in a country like ours would be put to better use. I mean, mothers are dying. 18 mothers in Uganda die every day while giving birth. So, but they can't airlift them from that island in Lake Victoria to, to a hospital in Kampala, which is a capital city. So our first core is people-centered government. Now we also are going to look into better education and health services, which I just talked about. 18 mothers die every day. It's really unfortunate if you look at the infrastructure, the healthcare infrastructure. Let's talk about COVID even. The US avails almost $900 million a year to Uganda. And during COVID times, they availed more. But no hospital has been constructed. Actually, there is a saga where government officials stole 197 million, and this saga is called the Lubowa Hospital saga. If you want more information, it's all available online. So, I mean, our government, Uganda does have the resources to run the country and to put people's lives, to make people's lives better. But the government, the misuse of those resources, and that's why the first thing that we are focusing on is a people-centered government, where it is not one person and maybe his family and cronies making decisions for the country, but it is the people. That's why we call ourselves people power. That's how we initiated people power and then converted to NUP. So those are the two. Then we are looking into mineral resources. Then we are looking into security and international relations. That's also on our agenda. And a few other things that we are working on to make a better government. I can go on and on.
Yeah, but well, many still feel, Mr. Herman, that Uganda has performed quite well in terms of the state of the economy. Looking at Bloomberg's 2020 projections, that Uganda was among the top 10 fastest growing economies in the world. Doesn't that give a clear picture that the reign of Yoweri Museveni hasn't been as bad as you've painted it to the rest of the world?
You are a journalist, so information is as good as its source. What is the source of that?
Bloomberg. It's an American think tank, institution that projected that Uganda, is on the top 10 among the fastest growing economies in the world.
Well, I'll tell you that Ugandans are very hardworking people. I'll tell you that for a fact. And I would like to, I can quote for you a few places maybe where they say, the fastest growing or things like that. It's because we are ambitious and hardworking. I'll tell you that many people, many youth, Uganda is 85% population youth. Many youth start businesses. They want to start business and grow their country and contribute in one way or the other. Unfortunately, all businesses that start won't make it to their first birthday. I think it's 30% of the business. I mean, only I think 1 in 10 businesses that start make it to their first birthday in Uganda, and that is really poor performance. Maybe the fastest growing is because we have a youthful population, and many people start up businesses, but those businesses, I guarantee you, do not sustain lives. And I'll tell you why they do not sustain lives. Or they can't be sustained and grow into decent businesses. It's because of corruption. I mean, you start a business, a police officer, because of poor pay, again from the government, comes to your shop or kiosk or whatever businesses you've had. They want money for a license, they want a bribe for this, they want a bribe for this, and this has been the culture. This has been a culture that has been cultivated by Museveni and his cronies for the last 35 years. And it's also because of poor government, because the government is not catering for the civil servants well. They become creative. They are pushed into a corner where they have to become creative and start asking for bribes. Now, if you start your business today, in your business plan, you don't cater for corruption. Of course, that business is not going to make it even to 6 months because of that. So I'll tell you for a fact that, tell me the source of that, of that statistic, or that, and I will tell you why they want to say that. We also know I am in the US and we have a DC team, a Washington DC team, and we know that Museveni pays several lobbyists to try and project him as a good governor, as a good leader, as a democratic leader, which overwhelms my understanding why we still say democratic and Museveni in the same sentence. It doesn't make much sense to me. And so you will find a place or two where they say, oh, Uganda is growing significantly. But I want you to ask a Uganda on ground if they can feel the impact of that growth. The statistics are, are only important if they do impact, if they show the results on ground. But if they don't, then I don't think that it is even relevant.
But of course, maybe let's get to your solutions in terms of you are refusing statistics which are correct. Even the the Ugandan Post did put up these statistics. But get into what NUP will ensure that. How will you ensure that the projections that we are seeing that Uganda is performing well reach to an average Ugandan? How will you ensure that these projections, this annual growth that we are seeing, goes to the intended average Ugandan citizen?
Again, ask a Ugandan on ground for a fact to tell you if that shows up in their day-to-day lives, if that statistic shows up, if it impacts them in their day-to-day lives, and you will know for sure. That's you can run a random research, but I'll tell you how these problems that we face are addressed. First, leadership, good governance, accountability. Now, accountability, I've talked about corruption. In Uganda, I told you the money that was stolen for the Lubowa Hospital. Lubowa Hospital, I'll repeat that for people to look it up. Lubowa Hospital was a project that was funded it was passed by Parliament to build a good hospital for the country. Unfortunately, there was land secured, money was passed by the Parliament, and there's no hospital to this day. I mean, ministers went to, members of Parliament were investigating and went to look at how much work was done, and this was around 2017, 2016. And there's no hospital to this day, $169 million. How do you grow a country when it is hemorrhaging that much money? So ours is to make the leaders who take that money accountable. Ours is accountability. So someone takes 169 million, no one was brought to book, and that is Museveni's government for you. So once you have someone take money like that, Minister of Finance and Ministry of Health, where this money goes, you're supposed to hold the ministers accountable, and that replaces the money. So someone else learns from that. They, you take them to prison, take them to court, follow up. Nothing is done. And that's how we plan to do it. Accountability. People who shoot people on the streets. Bobby Wine's bodyguard, His Excellency Robert Chagulanyi Sentamu's bodyguard was killed. He was run over by a police truck. No one was brought to book. So our government intends to hold people accountable. We should know who is killing Ugandans, who is making the random shots, who is running over people. Talk about COVID. Ugandans are very generous people. They donated a lot. Ugandans themselves donated a lot to the government. They donated food, they donated cars, they donated cash to the government. But none of that was placed back into people's lives. None of that was, it showed up. No, none of that showed up. None of that was distributed. So where did those resources go? Those resources are supposed to go to the people, and these are the things you want to change as people power, people-centered government. These are the things we want to change. We want to be very accountable, and we know that with accountability, then growth becomes very, very automatic.
All right, speaking about COVID, just before we could speak about other issues, how would you describe how the government of Museveni has responded to the fight against COVID-19. Not talking about the donations that you said, there's been a lot of mismanagements, but looking at how they've managed to ensure that not many lives are lost. I do know for a fact that currently in Uganda you stand at about 251 of lives that have been lost. From the time you hit the first case of COVID-19 in Uganda, how would you describe how government has helped to respond to this pandemic?
First of all, I think we've talked about the pandemic frequently. It has been publicized, not by the government necessarily, but like I said, Uganda is a youthful population. People endeavor to take some time and do research, and they were warned through Bobby Wine's music, about the severity of the disease. Now, for the performance, for the number of lives, I want you to know as a journalist, and I'll tell you this, journalism has been stifled by the government. So I would not rely on the numbers from the Uganda government for the regarding the number of deaths, the number of COVID deaths. What the government has done really well is to stifle information. In Uganda, we pay they call it an over-the-top tax. And what that is, it's a tax on information. It's a tax on social media and access to information. There is a hashtag right now on Twitter that says "End Police Brutality in Uganda," and then another hashtag that says "Journalism is not a crime." Uganda does a good job at stifling information. So the number of deaths is not accurate compared to the actual people. That number is projected for Museveni's donors to give more money and maybe, get that reputation that he has done. The government has done a good job at containing the disease. But in practice, in actual figures, I mean, hospitals are full to the brim with COVID patients, and a COVID test in Uganda costs $80. A COVID test. This is a pandemic.
You actually pay for the COVID test.
Go on.
You pay for the COVID test in Uganda.
You pay for the COVID test in Uganda. Isn't that ridiculous? It's a pandemic. Anyone could have the disease. Now, if you're trying to manage the disease, why doesn't the government avail, free testing sites? Okay, so that people know, and then they can take these precautions as necessary. So there is a lot of mismanagement, and I can tell you for a fact, if you follow the hashtag "Journalism is not a crime," all those pictures you see, all those videos you'll see, they are of Uganda police beating up journalists. Museveni's government, the UCC, which is in charge of communication in Uganda, wrote to Google and Facebook to block certain channels that were streaming incidences of police beating up people and killing people live. And I don't know if you have all this information again.
Most definitely. We'll get to talk about that later on, but for now, let's take a short break. We'll join you on the other side, Herman.
All right, thank you very much.
All right. Is Uganda ready for change? Is what we're discussing on tonight's edition of The Assignment. My guest is Herman Ainebyona, who is Diaspora Chairman for the NUP. Mr. Herman, are you back online?
Yes, I am.
All right. One issue that has been very consistent, not only among the NUP, but also several other opposition political parties in Uganda, is that you refer to Yoweri Museveni as a dictator when his ascension to power has been through democratic means, through an election. Why have you continued to refer to him as a dictator?
Yes, the reason is all the reasons I've stated since we started having this conversation. Impunity, okay? The constant brutalization of opposition is overwhelming. People being shot constantly, the corruption, theft. His brother Salim Saleh is one of the most corrupt people. His in-law Sam Kutesa has a case in Sam Kutesa who held a position in the UN for a little bit. He has a case for stealing money while in that he took advantage of the position. He has a case he can't travel to the US because of corruption, stealing I think $50 million or thereabout. So we refer to him as a dictator because, and most importantly, he has not let Uganda go. He hasn't let Ugandans go to have another leader. I understand in Zambia you've had 5 presidents since 1991, is that the case?
Yeah, it is correct.
Well, we haven't had any other president besides Museveni for 35 years.
My point now, precisely, his coming into power hasn't been, it has been through democratic means, through elections. Doesn't it?
Well, the quality of the election, I think, is important as well. If we have an election where, when political opponents attempt to campaign, their campaign team is arrested, I don't understand how you can say democracy and that process in the same language, in the same sentence. But if you have people being beaten and look at the last 2016 election, ballot papers arrived at the polling station.
Been pre-marked, and all those issues. But here's the thing again, Herman. Amidst all these challenges that you're speaking about, people have continued to give Yoweri Museveni a vote. Doesn't that tell us that?
Let me tell you what Yoweri Museveni has done, just so you understand. I mean, recently he changed the constitution. It's the constant shifting of goalposts. Our constitution initially stated that a president can only rule for 2 terms, can be president only for 2 terms, and they can't run again for president. Yoweri Museveni, with his NRM MPs, there was an attack on parliament, there was a lot of pushback and friction, and they made an adjustment to remove the limit, to remove the term limit from the Constitution of Uganda. Again, very recently, in 2017, the Constitution of Uganda, until 2017 stated that any president cannot be president until after 75, until 75 years. So we had an age limit on presidents. What happened? Again, an attack on parliament through Museveni, army, police, and the constitution was overturned, and now he can be president forever. So that is dictatorship. Talking about winning the election, I cannot, and I wish I had shared this with you initially if I knew I would. The videos of proof of ballot stuffing, voter bribery, corruption, the impunity in the election, throughout the electoral process, has been immense. And that demoralized Ugandans to be part of the election. Now, our strategy has been to re-empower Ugandans and tell them that this is your country. I mean, Ugandans had become very apathetic about the election because for 35 years, the turnout has always been the same, or he won the election. But this time, since 2017, our campaign has been to re-energize, motivate, sensitize Ugandans, and tell them that they have an impact, they can make a change. And that is why the voter turnout has increased by 2 million voters since 2016. And we are very hopeful that we'll take them in.
Well, again, I'll refer you back to, I do know for a fact that you know Andrew Mwenda from Uganda, who is a strong anti-Bobi Wine, who argues to the contrary that, look, if all these allegations that you're talking about of stealing elections, they've been failed to prove before a competent court. But also he argues strongly that, look, from 2013 or to 2020, looking at the performance of the economy, Uganda has been doing quite well. For example, in 2013, the economy was growing around 3.9%. In 2014, it increased by 2% to grow at about 5.7. In 2015, it grew at about 6.8. In 2016, of course, that was an election, it dropped to 0.4. In 2017, it grew at around 7.3.
Thank you for
and ironically, and here's the thing, in 2020...
Why did the growth from the reports, why did that growth drop from an election?
Well, you would know better, of course. But I'm just giving you the projections of how your economy has been growing the past decade.
Sorry for interrupting, but I'll tell you that Andrew Mwenda, you called Andrew Mwenda anti-Bobi Wine, but he is very pro-Museveni. He is one of Museveni's propagandists. Ofono Pondo, if I knew, I would have given you the list so that when you're quoting, you quote with knowledge of how biased those quotes are. I told you already, information is as valid as its source. I mean, if you're
but I only referred to Andrew Mwenda in reaction to the allegations that some of the elections have been stolen, because I do know for a fact that there were petitions that were being made, yet they didn't still pull through because they were unfounded.
Yeah, I mean, he was a journalist before. He was very critical of the government until he met the president, until he was arrested himself. He was arrested for a while by Yoweri Museveni, and I think from that he met the president, and he has been benefiting from the regime. So his journalism is very, I'll say, unprofessional, to say the least. So I wouldn't consider his quote. The people who have an impact and the people who we should trust are the people of Uganda who show up at these rallies and get shot, but show up the next day. And that is the hunger of change that we are going to capitalize on. That's the hunger of change that we are going to use. That's the hunger of change that Uganda is going to utilize to see a new president after 35 years of dictatorship, again, of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. But Andrew Mwenda, as a person, that might be his personal opinions, and I'm sure very, very many Ugandans feel very differently.
Well, what are the indicators that you are seeing of a wind of change in Uganda ahead of next week's election?
The first one is that is the voter turnout. Like I told you, the registration, the Electoral Commission had registered, 15 million voters. Now it has 17 million. So the growth to 2 million shows a sign of optimism. And a hope for change in Uganda. But the zeal and the persistence that Ugandans have showed, I mean, through the tear gas, through the bullets, but they continue to support a candidate who speaks to their feelings, who speaks to their livelihoods, who speaks to their realities, who connects with them and, speaks about the issues that affect them. That has been a constant win for us. That has been a constant win. It has been a motivator. It has been a big indicator And from that, we've seen the results of, people's presence and all that. And so we are very hopeful. And we also have some strategies. I'll speak from the diaspora perspective. Never before has Uganda had an interest. There are very many Ugandans living outside Ugandans, again, because of the very high unemployment rates, the lack of opportunity in Uganda, the failure of businesses. So there are very many Ugandans outside the diaspora. I think the last number I have off the top of my head estimates about 5 million Ugandans living outside Uganda. That's a huge number. Now, never before, there's no election in Uganda's history where the diaspora, the people outside Uganda, have been involved in their country's election as they have this time. NUP is supported by Ugandans outside the diaspora, and I speak to that because I head that campaign and that initiative. So there are very many indicators of a hopeful transition of power.
Yeah. But also, voting is one thing and winning an election is another thing. What are you doing as the National Unity Platform to ensure that your vote is protected and Museveni doesn't, doesn't go out with your votes?
Yes, we are running very many campaigns, but then I'll talk about the most important, the U vote application at the end. But the first campaign, we have educated Ugandans, we've sensitized Ugandans. And we have three roles. I didn't say this. We have three roles: organize, sensitize, mobilize. Those are our pillars when we speak to people and when we are talking to them about, a better country and a new Uganda. But we have, first of all, mobilized, adding, the 2 million voters on the register is significant within a period of 3 years. We have mobilized, that is mobilization. We have sensitized people. We have educated people that once you vote, it is not over until you know the result from your polling station. And that includes the result for our opponent, that includes the invalid votes, that includes the number of votes that, went unticked because maybe people didn't show up, someone fell sick, whatever the reason might be. So we have done a lot of voter sensitization, which is actually the role of the Electoral Commission. But we have taken it on because, again, our hope is not in brutality and, stealing an election and military. Our hope is in the people of Uganda, and I think we've done that to the max. Finally, we have an application where voters will be able to relay results in real time from the election. So we'll have those predictions in real time, and I think the government of Uganda is going to have a hell of a time containing NUP and containing and stealing the election.
Yeah, maybe just a highlight of how the U vote would work out. When an individual gets to vote, for example, how will you be getting the projections that this one has voted for Bobby Wine? What does the application get to do?
So Ugandans have a mandate. They have a responsibility. Like I said, the vote counting at the end of polling, after polling, the vote count is done, right there in public with people watching. So right at the end of the vote count, we are hoping that people forward those results right after they are counted from each polling station. Uganda has 36,000 polling stations, and we are counting on the people of Uganda to forward the result from that election to a central place where we can review and also assure them of the state and the results from the election.
Yeah, but in terms of the integrity of the electoral process, from the time that voter registration began to the time that campaigns began, how would you describe the integrity of of this electoral process before voting?
Again, it is a very biased, to say the least. It's a very biased process, but nevertheless, we believe, and we've seen biased systems in the past. Biased systems in Sudan, Libya, and countries like that, where the incumbent does everything to contain, to keep people very suppressed and to hold them down. But after a revolution like ours, after the work that has been put in, I think it is going to be very, very difficult. But again, the electoral process is very, very biased, to say the least.
Well, if things go your way and the National Unity Platform gets to win the elections on the 14th of January, do you see Yoweri Museveni, conceding defeat?
Well, that's up to him. That's up to him.
That's up to him.
Yeah.
From your end, do you see him conceding defeat, really?
Well, I follow the law, and I expect him as an elder to concede to defeat. That is the expectation. But again, we are very open-minded people, and there's a lot of work being done. Whether he concedes or not, I think that the people of Uganda will be responsible for the outcome and Museveni's decision after the election.
What would you say
if he loses?
Yeah, what would you say is your president's biggest comparative advantage, to Yoweri Museveni? What is it that Bobi Wine has that you're counting on very much to ensure that victory is indeed gotten on the 14th?
Three things: the Almighty, the law, and the people. Those are the three things we back on, and those are the things we are counting on. The law is on our side. We haven't killed anyone. I mean, the president recently admitted to his security forces murdering someone, actually one of his supporters, sadly. On TV, he said they killed him. It's the things in Uganda are hard to believe, but these things are real and happening. So we're counting on the support. First of all, we are very, we believe in the Almighty. We believe in power beyond ourselves. We also believe in the law. The law has been on our side from day one. Nothing we've done is illegal. I am not shy or embarrassed to say anything. I'm comfortable speaking about the things that are being done in NUP because there's nothing illegal about them. And finally, and most importantly, is the people. So the comparative advantage of NUP and Ugandans is that we have the power and the support of the people, and we have the support of the law.
To what extent do you believe that the comparative advantage that Yoweri Museveni has is the fact that he uses the police to his advantage? Evidence from the number of killings that we've seen on national television. Do you think, the police are favoring the incumbent ahead of these elections?
Obviously. I mean, he just made a reshuffle, and the head, the commander of the Special Forces Command, which is the team that is meant to protect the president, he just assigned his son as the leader of that team. So yes, his son is, and this is all to intimidate and show that he has control over the country and he can do whatever he wants. But we believe more that the power of the people is way greater than the army, the military, and any of those things. But also on the other side, the people in the military and army are also Ugandans. People usually forget that they, you know, they've seen some of them are there because of the high levels of unemployment. I mean, a soldier, you know, a policeman in Uganda earns 400,000 shillings. That is about maybe $150 a month. $150 for a civil servant a month. On our agenda, we plan to increase that salary to $1 million, which is about $300 a month.
Isn't that a little bit rhetoric, really?
Because we know the funds are there, but again, these people are Ugandans, and they also want change. They also want a better country. They want to be able to take their wives to hospital and they give birth in good places, and they know that Museveni's government is one of the reasons why Uganda's funds are hemorrhaging and we are being buried in debt from Chinese and all these Western countries. So those people are going to participate in voting. I don't understand, you know, I don't see how there would be anything to oppose that if they vote right, and you know their responsibility is to guide Ugandans and not necessarily Museveni. So we are not very worried about it. Talk about matching numbers now. Uganda has 40 million people, and we have about at the most 100,000 security forces, and that includes prisons, police, and army. So you can't match 40 million people to 100,000 people. So it would be, I think, a misput comparison to do that. That would be one soldier to, let me see my math, to 400 people. Isn't that crazy? So I don't see a problem with the army at all.
All right, Herman Ainebyona, thank you so much for having made time to appear on tonight's edition of The Assignment. We greatly appreciate.
Thank you. I appreciate your opportunity.
Wish you all the best ahead of the elections on the 14th of January.
Yes, can you keep your cameras on Uganda? Keep your cameras on Uganda.
Most definitely, we'll be getting the updates from you.
Thank you.
All right, so I was speaking to Herman Ainebyona, Diaspora Chairman.